once again to ITWOBL. This is Inside the World of Box Lacrosse with Adam Levi and Greg Beecher for Blue Squash Productions. I am Stephen Stamp. Very pleased to have you along with us. And I'm trying to keep the show open so I can see your comments, and it's not working because I'm old and not very good at tech. But we will manage it. Greg might have to see the comments again anyway. I don't know. I've got an ad and whatever. But we're going to start by looking at last week, week 10 in the National Lacrosse League. You guys, sometimes you have those weeks where just everything's falling into place. It feels like you got your flow going. You're in the zone. Everything's just perfect. I would be all about those. And the thing is, though, we get to watch lacrosse, write about lacrosse, and talk about lacrosse. So it's not so bad. But we will take a look at the results, which Greg pulled up and then realized we were just going to yammer for a while. So I'm sure he'll pull them back up. And we will look at how things went last week. And we're going to take a specific look at a couple of games. And here we go. Here are the results. And it was not a great week for us for picks. I went 4-3, which I was actually fairly happy to have it come out that way. You went 2-5. I hear Preston.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Did you mean 5-2, 2-5? I don't want to talk about my bad record.
Yeah. Does it make you cold? Is that why you're wearing a hoodie and a toque?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm in a bit of a cold streak right now. Not enjoying
it. How'd Preston do? I know he was sick last week when he had to make his picks. So
yeah, when he's sick, he's not doing great. I think I even put out a tweet saying we're thinking of putting him back on the practice roster because he's I think got 30% of his picks right in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, you just gotta wait till he's fully healthy, right? You can't be playing at 50% and expecting.
Can't be rushing it back. Got to think long term.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking. He's got a whole career ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's the results. The Halifax win over Vancouver, I think, was a bit of a surprise for a lot of folks, but Halifax played very well. Warren Hill seems to be getting his mojo back after losing the starting job for a bit. I was calling the Calgary at Ottawa game, which was a lot of fun. Had a blast with Jason Tassé beside me and Brianne Foley down between the benches. And that was a very impressive game. Speaking of goaltenders, for Cam McLeod, that was kind of a breakout game for him.
Yeah, it was a really important game for him to have. And it was just a continuation of the Calgary Roughnecks proving to the rest of us that they are far more capable than we thought that they were going to be. We really, I think, counted them out, too early in the season with the moves that they had made over the offseason. But yeah, I know that we had spoken last week and there was some interest, some intrigue around the goaltending situation. Colby Bowman, who we talked about, had been quite good, and he actually was bounced for Goa Abrams. So it was going to be interesting to see had now I'm blanking. Cam McLeod not been at his best, would Goa have gotten that chance? But now that has been postponed. Good to see Cam McLeod hitting that stride. Really important for him to do that, and also to do it against a capable, albeit struggling, Ottawa Black Bears offense. I think speaks even more to how impressive it was.
Yeah, Josh Sanderson actually in the pregame calls, he was saying, we can't look at what Ottawa has done on offense. We have to look at what they can do because we know how good they can be. And Calgary obviously took that approach. Their defense was excellent. I encourage you to go back and watch that game if you haven't seen it. Calgary was very good. And I'll tell you, if Cam McLeod can play like that every week, they're definitely a playoff contender. They have a chance to win a bunch of games. The reality is 23-year-old goalies don't necessarily play that way all the time. It's the reality of the position, right? It's a challenge. It's very up and down, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Rochester in Philadelphia, the Nighthawks kind of put things together, even with Will Shipley in the house, cheering on the wings. The Eagles running back could not inspire them to a victory as Rochester pulls that one out.
Yeah, I mean, it was another tough defensive performance from the Philadelphia Wings, and Nick Demude not up to the standard that we expect him to be at. You did see the absence of an energetic guy like Scott Dominey on the back end. Other guys like Connor Sellers and the rest of that defense tried their best. But the thing about Rochester is that they're so aggressive in their attack. I mean, they literally are top of the league when it comes to shots per game, and against a defense that has had some struggles like the Wings. We really saw that on full display. But, one thing that has been a pitfall for the Rochester Nighthawks is that they haven't been able to finish at the rate that they had last year, and they did that against the Wings this past weekend. So kudos to them. And
all that happened without talking about Hartley. I mean, Ryan Hartley was back. Can we please talk about that?
Yeah, I was going to say, we talked about goalies in every game, and we haven't even mentioned yet that Rylan Hartley came back, or Ryan Hartley, if you look at the broadcast. But Rylan Hartley back between the pipes, which, Adam, you and I were talking about, we're saying, boy, Riley Hutchcraft's been good for them. And it seems a little bit of a rough shake for him to suddenly he's watching, but now I think and Rylan Hartley came back, and he was his acrobatic self, does the splits all the time, which I hurt myself just watching him, but he's so acrobatic. He wasn't great in the game, he was good, but
he also coming back from injury, especially a lower body injury. He was quite flexible.
Exactly.
But and he's got his angles, right? And the defense in front of him can put him in the best situation. What we saw, and you can see it right there, it is those acrobatic stops, those ability to make the saves. That I know that, it is tough for Hutchcraft. I'm a big Hutchcraft guy, but it also has been something that Hutchcraft has said where whenever Hartley is ready, he knows that it's Hartley's position until it's not. So he's always been a big team guy.
That photo that Greg was just sharing is from IL Indoor. You should go and check out all of our stories on there. That is from either my 5 things. I think that's from my 5 things. Or is it the 3 up there?
5 things Dan talks about a goalie controversy.
Yes, yes, right. Like, who's the goalie? The thing I'm always going through the NLL photo shelter looking for pictures, trying to grab good shots that capture things. And there was one of Hartley. It was just a side view as he's kind of hunched back with most of them in the net, just his head poking out. And I was thinking, this is great. Hartley is back, right? And Hartley is back in the net, and his back is in the net. I thought that's pretty interesting. And I see this picture that is up on the screen. I'm like, yeah, that's the one. This is a guy coming back from a lower body injury.
And a little nerve-wracking at that moment where he reached back for the ball, and thankfully it looked like it was just a cramp, but he did need some help on the floor after he reached back to save a goal, and that was key. And I just want to give a shout out. I know that we're big fans of Mike McClellan at the NLL, and there's people at the NLL who do the Player of the Week and Rookies of the Week, and I feel like there are many guys that could have gotten it, and all due respect to Ryan Terefenko of the Thunderbirds. But, for what Connor Fields did, I had looked it up. He was only the 3rd player in the last 20 years to post 11 plus points and 13 plus loose balls in a game. For what it's worth, I would have had him as my Player of the Week, but I don't make that call. That's for the people who are running the show. But just wanted to give a shout out to the historic performance by Connor Fields.
Michael Carvelis must be just frothing at the mouth saying, Fields. He's a big Fields guy. Fair enough. I mean, great player.
As I am, one of the nicest guys in the National Lacrosse League. And, that gets thrown around a lot, but really salt of the earth human being, really one of the great guys in lacrosse.
Our final game of the week, we're going to take a look at quite a few highlights from Georgia and Las Vegas. We'll get into that in a minute. But right now, I just want to bring up the highlights from Colorado. We skipped a game here. Skipped a couple of games. We missed Toronto, Colorado, which we're going to go to, and there's Saskatchewan beating San Diego, another young goalie, Thomas Kaiser. But I think we need to get on to the highlights. So enough of looking at us. Let's look at some highlights. And I want to see, we have queued up the Chris Boucher, just spectacular plays here. Let's just watch this first one on the play from behind the net as he goes full Ryan Lee in his 2 goals.
Yeah, I mean, he really, has been a highlight of that offense. And we've seen that right side really step up. You'd like a little bit more production from the left side of that Toronto Rock offense, but Chris Boucher has been a shining star, as we expected him to be, even back from his Halifax days. But really stepping up, and with Tom Schreiber now back in the lineup with regularity, that is proving to be one of the most promising and fruitful right sides in the National Lacrosse League right now.
Yeah, I really want to take a look at this, because look at Bushi from behind the net. You can see his plan. Goalies tend to go high because guys tend to dunk high. And I love how Bushi is looking low. He sees where his option is going to be here, what's going to work for him. And it is down low, and he tucks it 5-hole, coming around the hard way. It's so much easier when you go to your backhand side. Look at this athletic play, and Smart is doing exactly what he's doing. Also, Josh Sawwick's been really good on the right side too. But yeah, look at that play.
Yeah. And I mean, not to be cheeky, but you expect nothing less from someone from the Southern Hemisphere to shake things up and go down low. So
there you go. Yeah. And then this one gets the shot. It's blocked. Goes against it. First of all, I really like Challen Rogers just clearing out here, drawing the defenders high. Chris Bushi sees he's one-on-one with Owen Down, who's having a bit of a tough season, I think. But look at this play, the athletic play. This is the one I'm talking full Ryan Lee right here. This, you see a goal like this in the Loud House in Denver, you think it's Ryan Lee.
Yeah.
Except he's wearing the number 21 for Toronto instead of the 16 for Colorado. But look at this. The horizontality, the reach. Beautiful.
Unbelievable. And this, speaks to, we've been talking about Toronto being on the rise, going into the Loud House and being fearless enough to attack the net and attack that tough Colorado defense, led by head coach and defensive-minded Pat Coyle. Yeah, very, very, very difficult to do, and they've been they've really been proving that they are ready to make the run that they weren't able to make due to injuries early on in the season.
So those two goals by Chris Bushi in the Loud House, and Ryan Lee, like we said, he's the guy you're used to seeing that from. So here's what he does. That's him to the very left of your screen with the knee brace on the right leg. He's going to go behind that. Go ahead and run it. And this is with the final few seconds of the first half. He comes out from behind the net. He's right in behind the crease. Look at that dive and going at top corner. That is incredibly difficult of a shot. Like Connor Kelly, kudos to him. He sells this shot fake and then makes the pass. Now look at Ryan Lee, how far. That's why I'm saying Bushi and full Ryan Lee, the horizontality, the reach. And I think that outdoes either of the Bushi goals. They were both great. This is spectacular.
I mean, he has what a happy sight it has been to see Ryan Lee fully healthy and really exerting all of his energy and effort to the Colorado Mammoth. But as you mentioned, Connor Kelly, who we've talked about a little bit so far on the show this season, but he has been one of the brightest spots and one of the focal points of that offense, making everything click. So really good for him to get that kind of play started.
Do we need to take a break, Greg, or should we roll through these? Do we want to come back and start with let's just roll right in. We're going to look at Georgia at Las Vegas in one of the Tucker Lymphoma Cup games. And we're going to look at
what a feisty game that was.
It was a feisty game. I want to talk about, maybe in the next section, we'll talk about the little controversy at the end, I guess. But I just want to look at Torrin Eccleston. 4 goals, 4 assists. He played 2 games so far. He had a year off, and he had some injury issues he had to come back from. But he was a number 6 overall pick after a couple of great seasons in the WLA. And just watch what Torrin Eccleston does here, the way he scores. He's got the bright yellow shoes, and he's just gonna go in and find a rebound on this first goal. Go ahead, Greg, and run it. Look at that. He picks it up, and you're thinking, easy peasy. He's on the crease, no problem. But watch how quickly he gets the ball with the full right one-hand extension, gets it up, makes sure of his feet, and gets the shot off as 2 guys are coming to hit him. This is a great play.
Picking up a loose ball right on the crease with one hand, with pressure bearing down on you, is never easy, especially for a rookie. But, as you mentioned, his junior career, he's been ready for this moment, for this transition. Played for Anthony Yoakum and the St. Joseph's Hawks in his senior year last year at the collegiate level. And I know that Anthony Yoakum was, although different teams, was happy to see him perform well. But, this was an incredible effort. And, it's all about doing more than just scoring and being available to pick up those balls like that. Unbelievable.
So this one, I'm thinking on this goal, first of all, his big seasons were in the WLA in senior. Actually, he was junior, good in junior, but those senior seasons where he scored like 56 and then 70 points, very, very good in his first couple of years. Playing for Anthony Jochum, who's bounced around but loves coaching out at St. Joe's. So after these first two goals, where he's wide open on the crease, the second one, just nobody's covering him. I'm thinking, let's cover this kid.
Yeah.
So then, because he's wide open there. Let's go to the next goal. And we're going to see there's Andy Secor, a little advice, like keep doing that. Yeah. I think was probably the gist of it. Here he is up top, and a little pass fake and stutter completely sells the defenders again. Vegas we've seen some young defenders having trouble letting guys get underneath. In this one, you just can't go up. You'll see Gagliardi here, 27, completely heads up to the offensive zone. It's a little jumpy on my view, but when you watch this at regular, you can see the defender just heads up floor.
Yep.
Just leans. That's all it takes. And you've given that lane to Eccleston. Great athletic play.
Yeah, set up there also by a solid pick. Yes. But there was a couple of great moves there. One, the footwork to get around the first defender, but then of course the fake near the crease again. So it shows the creativity and athleticism all within one play.
And this fourth one, his fourth goal of the game, takes this pass. That's him getting the pass, and this is bench transition. He gets across to the far side of the floor as the lefty coming second off the bench. And it's funny because the thing that really makes you jump up and say, wow, is flying horizontal going. That's all after the play. He's just standing at the crease there. He's made his reach. He's made the shot and tucked it far side without ever having to jump. He just does the dive to make sure he stays out, but it makes it look nice.
It does make it look nice, but also makes me nervous, especially watching it back. It looks like he's going straight for the post there, which, a head to a post is never a good thing, but he does avoid it, which is good.
No. Now this is that one. Yep. Love it. So he had 4 goals. His biggest goal of the night was a non-goal, which is the next one we're going to see. And here he comes off the bench, streaking in, dives, foot clearly clear, ball goes in. They wave it off. He's saying, let's challenge. They don't yet. Pause it for a sec, Greg. So he's asking for a challenge. I was like, wow, that looked pretty good. I've gone back and watched it. It looked pretty good. The question would be, did his toes drag? Did he come down before? Did it hit the goalie? Whatever. But it would be definitely challengeable. Vegas goes down the other end. It's 14-11. That would make it 15-11. Vegas goes down the other end. Really nice play. It's Jackson Webster, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's this one on a really nice play as well. And I was thinking, Eddie Camo's got to have the challenge flag ready. I'm thinking as soon as this ball goes in to the Georgia net, you get that flag on the turf because it was within the window just to get the challenge out. And I would be throwing that challenge flag because if the Eccleston goal is good, it's 15-11. The Webster goal never happens.
Yeah,
right?
And
14-12.
Yeah, and I would say that maybe I've noticed it a little bit more this year, but it did happen a bunch last year too. That I think that you're spot on. Where the coaches maybe need to be a little bit more. They obviously need to be careful at how often they're throwing the flag, but there has been many times where the clock has run out on them because they're either waiting for the in-house to play or they can't make up their mind. They can't see the replay, and then it's too late. And it's better to be safe than sorry. And like you said, in a situation like this, late in the game, I think that would have been valuable.
And they all have their video coaches with the iPad on the bench, and they're pulling that up right away and trying to get a look. But to me, it's like, if you're not sure, that's still worth the challenge. Again, it's easy to say now, but at the time I'm thinking, get that out there, get that out. As soon as that ball goes in the net, throw the flag, get it on the turf. But now this was a moment where we're going to watch this. We're going to have audio after this play, but watch John Rannigan in the white for Georgia with right there. He's going to cross check one of the Vegas players into the crease, and he will be in the crease when the ball goes in the net. But the rule is and just pause for a second. Well, you know what? Just go ahead and run it with the volume.
After review, Georgia number 31 has a minor penalty.
I don't have any sound, do you?
Cross-checking. This penalty.
What Kyle Cropman, the referee, is saying is,
when the goal was scored.
oh,
got it.
Sorry.
Result, the goal counts. You have a good goal. The illegal cross-checking is washed by the goal.
Okay, so sorry about that, folks. I didn't realize that you could hear it, but yeah. So the Vegas players checked into the crease. It's an illegal check, so it's going to be a illegal cross-check penalty, which means the player, he has to work to get out of the crease, but the goal is not canceled because he's in there. Great explanation. I just love the explanation by Kyle Cropman in that instance, and you can see the player goes down. He actually tries to stay out of the crease, gets in, and the ball's already in before he can start to pop back up. So really good explanation, really good call.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings up, we're going to talk about the other call after, because we've already gone fairly long here. I want to look at one more. What thoughts on that, Adam, first before we?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you make a great point that it is important. And I feel like there are many times, there's been quite a handful already this season of maybe controversial calls or complicated calls diving deeper into the rule book that have needed further explanation. So the fact that the ref could do that in real time instead of even having to go back and explain it, I think is very valuable. I have one example in particular. I was at the Philadelphia game against Vancouver at the very end when Sam LeClaire, the ball trickled off his shin in the dying seconds of that game that would have tied the game up. I believe it was 14-13 at the time, Vancouver over Philadelphia, and it was not explained in the arena as to why it was not a good goal, only that the player was in the crease, but the player had already been out of the crease at the time, so it was a little confusing. So, it is important for the fans and the viewers to kind of get a sense as much as we can in the moment. So I totally agree. Great refereeing there. Great explanation.
And to be fair, not all the referees are super comfortable going on the mic in front of a crowd of thousands of people. And one thing, you watch Kyle Cropman, and he takes a moment. He gets out there, gets set, and really composes himself. You can see he's preparing what he's going to say, and then he turns his mic on and he says it. And I think that's part of it. He's great in the moment at calming, arousal management. It's a big play. This is a big call for the refs, right? Yeah. This is huge for them. So he wants to make sure he gets it right, and he does a great job.
Yeah, 6 minutes, 15 seconds in a 2-goal game. It's a huge call.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to watch one more goal from this game, and this is Miles Thompson scoring on an elite play by Lyle Thompson. That's Lyle number 4 at the top. Oh, no, that's Miles number 2 at the top. Lyle is already on the ground. Watch this pass, is unbelievable.
Yeah, Miles was what a great sight to see him back on the floor and excelling and really contributing for his team. He talked after this game about what it meant. I think it was this game, what it meant to be floor with his brothers and competing, and he really gave it his all and was a key contributor in the win.
Yeah, and that's all very nice, and this is a great shot. But look at this play by Lyle. That's what I really started. He's on his back, protects it with one hand, rolling over, backhand shot, bouncer, and it's not just a wild flail. He looks and sees. He knows Miles is there. So he takes a peek, spins himself on the floor, 2 defenders all over him. Well, one all over him and one coming, and he makes this bounce pass. Holy cow.
You almost seem surprised that Lyle Thompson can do that kind of thing.
No, I'm surprised anyone can do that. But
he is next level, as we know. What an acrobatic play. I mean, literally eyes in the back of his head there. Truly incredible.
Yeah, I mean, nothing Lyle Thompson does can really surprise you anymore, but I'm just in awe of this play. And we're going to wrap up the review and take a little break, and we'll be back. We've got some other things to talk about, including Canadians in the NCAA. We've got maybe talk about the little controversy in Las Vegas and whether it really warranted controversy, and much more coming on ITWOBL Week 11, 2025. For Adam Levy, Greg Beecher, I'm Steven Stamp. We'll see you in a minute.
Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. ITWOBL, Adam Levy, Steven Stamp, Greg Beecher here with you. Now we're going to start a new segment that will be happening throughout this spring, which I know that Stamper and I are very excited about. Stamper being one of the leaders in terms of preparing for the future NLL drafts, one of the great draft minds that we have in this game. And so it feels like there's no better person to talk about future NLL stars that are playing the collegiate game, the collegiate field game in the NCAAs right now. And Stamper, there's a couple of big schools, one that was ranked that's not ranked anymore, that has some Canadians. But I want to start with Syracuse University, who is always known to have a lot of Canadians playing for them. But this year, huge dominating win in their first game of the season. 24 goals, I believe it was, by that incredible offense. They've got guys like Sam English and Michael Grace, who have already been drafted into the National Lacrosse League. Then you've got Owen Hiltz, who is a senior, Trey Deer, Finn Thompson. When you look at those guys, you've seen them so much in the box game over the summer. What can you say about what we can expect, especially, I guess, touching on English and Grace, who we know we're going to be seeing next year?
Yeah, I mean, English, obviously a second overall pick. And I think the other big contender for that second overall pick was Mike Grace. So, you're looking at two guys who are expected to be solid players right away. I think in that 2024 draft, it wasn't the most loaded draft. So I'm not sure that these guys are necessarily so high in certainly in 26 or 27 when they're just stocked with talent. There's going to be much more. These guys just wouldn't have been so high, but Sam English is a very good player. He's been very good in the box, playing with the Oakville Rock. Mike Grace has been playing for years, been playing really solid defense, and I think got some more attention when he played for Canada at the World Field Championships, right? I think that was huge for him. So it's interesting, like I look at guys that are coming up, like Finn Thompson to me he's in the 2026 draft. And we were talking last week a lot about Americans, and now here we are about Americans coming to play box. Here we are talking Canadians in the field. Finn Thompson's also a great box player. One of the absolute best with the Mimico Mountaineers, and he has been just outstanding, putting up some historic numbers. And he's going to be battling with, for the top spot, another strong contender for that top pick that could make it 3 Americans first overall in a row is Joyce Spallina. So, right. That there's the Syracuse connection right there. I think Finn Thompson is really a guy to keep an eye on. And who else is on Syracuse? I honestly, I don't follow the college game as much. It's hard to watch games north of the border.
Yeah. I mean, those are the main contributors. So you got Owen Hiltz, Trey Deer, who's played some great junior A ball during the summer. Really one of those electric players. You mentioned Grace. You look at him coming onto a Georgia Swarm team that Brett Dobson, I'm sure, is going to be happy to have him in front of him. Definitely bolsters that younger defensive side there. Those are definitely your main guys who have been contributing, and everyone has been talking about the Syracuse offense. So when you look at those guys, they've been incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting. Trey Deer is in the 2027 draft, and he is going to be a contender for number 1 as well. I think he's up there with some guys like Cody Milosky at Denver, Ty Banks, who's at Georgetown, Jamison Bucktooth, the terrific players at Onondaga Community College. I'm not sure what his plans are after. There's a bunch of guys, but Trey Deer is fantastic, and I can only imagine what he can do in the field game. I haven't actually seen him play field lacrosse. I've only seen him play box, and he's spectacular and does some great things. And he's gritty. He's got a lot of grit to him. Another guy to keep an eye on as well in Syracuse, actually a bit further down the road, is Brett Bucktooth Jr., who's a youngster. And I think he's played junior B with the Onondaga Redhawks. He's a very good young player. I'm very curious to see if he follows in his father's footsteps of being that really solid kind of depth player with a two-way game. And yeah, I'm very curious to see that as well.
And then another school that one that has had a lot of early success, including a dramatic win over ranked Towson yesterday, is a top 10 team in Johns Hopkins University with a lot of other Canadian stars. Matt Collison leading the way, Stuart Phillips from BC, from Coquitlam on that team has been contributing. Brooks English, Chuck Rawson. You've also got Gabe Soroketti on that team, as well as Alec Billings, Jack Charbonneau. So many Canadian players. Hopkins 2-0 to start the season against two ranked opponents. They look very strong, and they do because of those names I just mentioned.
Yeah, and I'm starting a series. I believe it's starting tomorrow as we speak. So the live subscribers, you will be able to know that this is coming. It is a series of interesting prospects to watch, 10 per draft for the next 4 drafts, starting with this year's 2025 draft. Everyone else who's not watching live, you're going to have to wait until it comes out, and then you'll know. So there's a bit of a bonus for being a subscriber. Thanks, everyone, for being with us, and tell your friends. But Johns Hopkins is quite a school as well. And a lot of those guys you just mentioned, as you're going through those names, I'm like, okay, he's in this draft, he's in this draft. A bunch of those guys are going to be in these stories. Did you mention Colton Marquis?
I did not, actually.
He
is an elite talent as well.
Oh, he is so good, playing for the Peterborough Lakers in senior box. He was with Orangeville, kind of overlooked, even though he led them in scoring on one of those huge offensive teams for Orangeville. He is a really dynamic player. They have a bunch of guys. Matt Collison. I mean, I'm just looking at the top of my 2026 draft, and all these guys, Brooks English up in the upper reaches of the draft. These are guys who are going to be very high draft picks, and they're bringing a lot to this college team.
Yeah, and I believe I didn't mention, I could be wrong on this, but looking at it actually now, Colton Marquis at the University of Albany now. He was a transfer, I believe, over.
That would explain it.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're more up to date on this stuff than I am. I'll correct that for my story, and there we go. I'm fixing it right now. Go ahead.
And then just finally, in terms of ranked teams, this is a team that is no longer ranked, at least for now, although they did have a win yesterday in Ohio State, the Ohio State University, who has had so many NLL products come out of there, a handful of very talented face-off guys. Another one you should be keeping your eye on, who is on the up and up, is Jack Oldman, who I know has been tapped as someone who can have the potential of a Jake Withers, and then Alex Marinier as well, part of that Ohio State team. When it comes to those two guys and the impact that you think they can make in the NLL, what are your thoughts?
What's the first guy's name?
Jack Oldman.
Oh, Jack Oldman. Okay, from Whitby. Sorry, I didn't hear first. Yeah, I know he's a solid player. I think Alex Marinier is right up there. I think you're looking at Alex Marinier as probably a top 5 pick this year in the draft. Huge scorer with the Burlington Blaze, and he was on that Burlington Blaze team that won the Minto Cup. And he and Braden Saris, who's at Princeton, were just a dominant right side. And they had Will McLeod on the left side. He's another guy who's gonna do very well, be a high pick. But he's a year later. He's at where is Will? He's at Robert Morris. But Marinier, very good. He had that great season with all those guys around him, and Saris and all these other guys that they brought in and trade and that. And then he came back and did it again, had 95 points the one year, came back with 94 for a Burlington team that had graduated a lot of players. Mm-hmm. So he's very good. I'm curious about Dante Bowen.
Yes.
At Ohio State. He was with Orangeville last year. Actually, a Brampton guy, was protected by Brampton from the major series draft this year. But he was a big part of Orangeville's defense on their way to the Minto Cup, where they lost to Coquitlam in the final. Yeah,
he's a tremendous talent, and you're right. That is another one who was not mentioned, and that is going to be interesting to see. So would he be? He would be in this year's draft. He's a senior at Ohio State now.
Yes, he would be. He is, and I've got him. I'm looking top 10 for him as well. Yeah, I think he's really good. I mean. Now, another guy you'd mentioned, are you ready to move on to another team?
Sure.
There was somebody you mentioned before that I thought was interesting. That's Dante Koulis from Rutgers, who he was actually with Brampton as well. And he was with them when they didn't have a great team that year. They were kind of a younger team. And then he was actually traded out to Alberta in his senior season. And if he'd been a year later, he would have been with all the guys that were traded to Orangeville last year. I don't know if he would have gone with them, but that's the class he was in. Was Connor O'Toole, Dante Bowen, and Bowie Horseman. All went to Orangeville in a huge trade. Brampton looking to build for the future. And I think Koulis gets a little overlooked because his team wasn't super competitive. They weren't really a playoff team when he was with Brampton. And he went out to Alberta and just scored. He just, wherever he goes, he just scores. He just plays well. He gets a little overlooked, but I think he's pretty good. I think he has some potential.
Yeah, and he's going to get more attention, at least at the field game this season. Rutgers now are a top 20 ranked team. They've started off their season quite hot, and he has scored in both games. Actually had 2 goals and 2 assists yesterday against Long Island University. So, that speaks to his potential both in the field and in the box game.
Okay. Anybody else? You're leading this one. I'm kind of
I'm sure we could go through so many schools with the Canadians. They seem to be flooding into the field collegiate game, just as the Americans are are playing in the summers in the box game. But I think pointing out those 3 schools is a good starter for those people excited about future NLL drafts.
I have one more I want to mention.
Yes,
you've got me going now. I'm all excited. Denver. The Pioneers, Matt Brown coaching. He's a Canadian. He's done such a good job of bringing guys in. They've got Casey Wilson there. Of course, we've seen a ton of Denver guys. Jeremy Noble, Trevor Baptiste. There's more. Chris, who? Westberg? Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty good, right? Casey Wilson is there. He's a righty forward of the Victoria Shamrocks. Played very well for them. He went to the Mann Cup with them last year. You've got DJ Clark, whose dad, Jason Clark, was a very good NLL player, captain of the Peterborough Lakers when they were winning Mann Cups and back in kind of an earlier iteration. They've got some very good players. And DJ Clark's a guy to keep an eye on. He's very interesting, a really lively young player. And Cody Milosky, I mentioned earlier. I mean, holy cow. I remember seeing Cody Milosky at basically a prospects camp at the Hill Academy in Ontario. He'd come out and he was playing, and you watch him play field lacrosse. It's like watching his dad play box lacrosse. Kurt was a gritty, you see the kind of coach he is. He was the same player. He was gritty, smart, skilled. And Cody, I have not seen a lot. He was pretty young. This was several years ago. And I have not seen a lot of players come from behind the net, come from X with the kind of just drive. Like he was coming out and you were not going to stop him. He was coming out and he was going to do what he wanted to do. And I thought, okay, well, he's playing against a bunch of kids. They're some really good players, but then he goes to junior A, he does the same thing. I imagine he's doing the same thing in Denver because he is dynamite.
Yeah, he has been great. And, there was a great quote that Matt Brown actually came out with. And Matt Brown obviously knows the box game very well. He actually said that Cody Milosky is a name you're going to be talking about for decades. And for that kind of praise, as many of us, who have covered the box game and know Milosky and what his potential, but to hear that publicly from Matt Brown, that his confidence to say that, speaks volumes.
Yeah. We're going to wrap this section up, but we've got more. We are going to take a look next at predictions for the coming week. I am confident that Adam is going to get back on track. And
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And if Preston's healthy, we know he's nails. Right, when he's healthy. So hopefully he doesn't have to go to the practice squad or the IR. Hopefully he's ready to bounce back now. But we will be back with more of ITWOBL on Blue Squatch. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you in a minute. Welcome back to ITWOBL Lacrosse Friends. I'm Steven Stamp with Adam Levy, Greg Beecher for Blue Squatch Productions. And go back and watch the other segments if you are just watching this in parts or later, because we've got a really fun review of the week with some great looks at the Georgia-Vegas game. And then a section the Adam Levy suggested and Canadians in the NCAA, and we will look at more of that as the season goes on. But that was really fun. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to contribute much, but I feel like I was ready to go. Once you start naming names, I'm in. So now we're going to make our predictions for this week, and I have pulled ahead a little bit because I went 4-3. Right in the grill of Brock. He goes down and is there. And on the review, the discussion was, well, you can't wipe this out. You probably don't reduce it to a minor. I'm thinking, well, of course it's a minor, if anything, because, and here's the thing, it's David Brock's stick. Jeremy Thompson just throws a cross check to the chest. It's high chest, but that's, I mean, if you want to give him a minor, okay, but they came back and rescinded it, and people seemed quite surprised. And I'm just like, to me, it wasn't a surprise. Were you surprised?
It was a very complicated situation. I was watching it unfold, and I was listening to Jake Elliott on the call, and kind of his explanation of it and his opinions of it. And it was a little bit hard to comprehend everything. But yeah, it didn't seem like I was taken aback by the fact that there was eventually no penalties on the play. It seems like, I mean, I know that things can cancel each other out, but I was expecting something to come out of that.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, I get it. Like, you see it, and you can say it was a high cross check, but I just don't think it was. I mean, and we've seen, I remember one of the early reviews of the majors when they first, it was last year, right? They started doing the review of majors, and Kyle Rubish checked somebody and got him here and slid up, and they call him major, and they watch the review and they're like, oh, hit him here and slid. That's a minor. You got to be responsible, but this is the initial point of contact. There's a couple earlier just in the past weeks that were both rescinded. And I thought, yeah, those are, and I get the player safety concerns, 100%. You want to protect players, but it has been well established that if you're checking a guy on the arm, his arm comes up, or wherever you slide up and you go into the head, that's a minor, because you're making contact with the cross check where you're supposed to. If you go straight to the ear hole, 5 minutes, no question, off you go, and you consider whether there should be supplemental. Absolutely, 100% protect the players. You can't do that. But I think these are all falling within what they're supposed to be. I think they've been good calls.
And I think then, exactly by the book that the refs have been doing a good job is that, their initial reaction is to, be cautious and to say, based on my gut reaction, this is what I saw with my eyes. Say they're going to review it. And I would say, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it feels like 90% of the major calls that have been reviewed have been brought down to a minor. So, that does show that upon review, once they get a look at it, they're stating exactly what you're saying.
I think 90 is a little high, but but yeah, I mean, it feels like that though, right? Because you really notice the ones that get reduced or rescinded. Whereas if it's just a major,
do they err on the side of calling it because they know they get to review it if it's a called major?
I think it's exactly that.
Maybe. It's interesting because I was actually at the 2019 World Lacrosse big meetings, the annual General Assembly. I was at that. I was representing France because they couldn't have anybody there, and it was in Peterborough where I was living at the time. And they said, "Hey, they asked me if I'd mind going and representing them?" And I was just like on a call with somebody from France while the voting section's going on. So I can be like, here's what we're talking about. What's your vote? And they say, okay, yeah, here's my vote. So it was cool. But there was talk about, they added that any contact to the head was a major. And it might have been a game misconduct. It was a pretty severe penalty. And I was actually the guy who spoke up and said, I like leaving it to discretion. I know refs have to make a lot of decisions, but if it's just like, boom, it's a major if you call it. The point was there's no minor possible for anything that winds up going to the head, even if it's off the shoulder or whatever. I said, I think they're going to be hesitant to call it. I would be, because I think it was a game misconduct even. And I'm like, they're going to be really hesitant to make these calls, knowing the ramifications. Because if they're wrong and there's no review in a lot of these games, like in the World of Lacrosse, like I think you have to be careful about not having unintended consequences of having more things happen. So that's where I'm like, call them back, rescind them, or reduce them to a minor if it's not actually a major. And that lets the refs make the calls and protect the players, but then still get the calls right.
Yeah. And I do just have to interject. How is your French?
It's okay. It's not as good as it was. It was substantially better. I went on a French immersion program right after high school, and actually hit the point where I was able to speak. When you're learning a language, you speak. So somebody would say something to me in French, and I would like hear it, kind of translate it to English in my head, think of my response in English, translate it to French, and say it, and it would be okay. But I did hit the point where I didn't have to translate. I was just speaking in French with people, which was pretty cool. I can't do that now. I haven't used it enough. So I would say moderate. I didn't want to say mediocre, but that's probably the best word for it.
And so, after talking about it, I trust me, I can't speak a lick of French, except for très bien and croissant.
Okay.
But
you don't spell it.
with the talk of the penalty and what was happening last week in that Georgia game, what are your thoughts then? Transitioning to this week against Colorado, do you have a pick? Do you maybe sway against Georgia because of the controversy?
No, it has no effect on my pick for this game. That was a nice segue though, because as you start, you're like, oh, you're going to something else. I think we need to get to the picks, and you were doing it, and here I am yammering away. So I guess I'm going to pick first since you threw it to me, and this is such a hard one, and I go back and forth. I mean, I think one thing is Dylan Ward has been playing very well. He is really looking like Dylan Ward.
Saves last week.
Right? And Brett Dobson has not been at his best. Brett Dobson is down near the bottom of the league in save percentage. I think this is a really good game. I think Colorado had a tough loss to Toronto. I think I'm taking Colorado in this one.
Yep, I'll keep it short and sweet. Always going to be consistent on this program. Not at all. I'm the one who usually rambles, especially during the picks, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet with this one. I've been consistent with Colorado. I'm going to keep that running. Give me Colorado for this one.
We move on to Calgary at Vancouver, and I managed to make you not be short and sweet by choosing. I mean, Calgary's looking good, right? So, Cam McLeod played very well, but when you come to young goaltenders, here's one. I don't know if we want to have a little digression here. So Aiden Walsh has been great for Vancouver. And here is the rematch of the Del Bianco Bowl that they played earlier in the season. So if you are Vancouver, because we talked about what it would take to get Del Bianco out of Calgary. And, part of it would be Aiden Walsh, I would think. And then some other big assets, including probably picks in the first round of the 26 and 27 drafts you'd be looking at. And those are great drafts. You don't want to give those up. If you're Kurt Milosky and you're seeing how Aiden Walsh is playing, I'm thinking, is Del Bianco enough of an upgrade? I mean, I still think he's the best goalie on the planet, most likely, and he's 27 years old, right? You've got him for a while, but is he enough of an upgrade that you give up those draft picks and whatever players you have to give up? Or do you start to say, we'll still give you some stuff, but hey, we're okay if we stay this way?
He's definitely, Aiden Walsh is making it difficult, and Del Bianco, has been tweeting again about being on the couch for the next 5 years. So that is definitely a concern. But yeah, I think it's going to be, it brings up the conversation. That's our cat in the background. You might be able to hear a lot of excessive meowing. I apologize for the cat, but yeah, I think that it does bring up a great point. We'll have to see. This is going to be a key month now, where you've got about a month before the trade deadline to figure things out. So how do things play out with Walsh? Is there going to be a place where both teams feel like a trade needs to be made now? Is this something that gets pushed back even further into the offseason? We'll have to wait and see. Both teams are in an interesting situation where, do you even want to make moves to shake things up right now? So it's definitely intriguing.
It's interesting. I was looking at this and I think, Aiden Walsh is a young goalie. How firmly established is he? But he's actually, I believe he's older than Del Bianco was when Del Bianco and the Roughnecks won the NLL Cup. And I think he's older than Del Bianco was when he won what did I say? He's older than Del Bianco was when he won that, but he's just a year younger than Del Bianco was when he was goalie of the year.
Yeah, 24 years old right now. Del Bianco won that championship in 2019. So yeah, Del Bianco would have been younger at the time. But yeah, it's at 24 years old, you're just starting to hit your peak in the National Lacrosse League as a goaltender. So, with Aiden Walsh playing at this level right now, wherever he ends up, it should give a lot of hope and promise to any team that has him.
Yeah. And Del Bianco it was 2 years ago, right? So he was 25 when he won his goalie of the year. Here's Walsh at 24. So I'm not saying Aiden Walsh is Christian Del Bianco. I think he has a ways to go to establish that level, but boy, he's been good. So we should probably make some picks. I guess I'm going first, and then you have to go first for the last two. So I'm going to go with Aiden Walsh and the Warriors.
I am too, only because, I think that we, after a very hotter start for Vancouver, they've kind of come down to earth a little bit in terms of their results. Performances have still been very solid, but have come out on the losing end. However, they are going to be at home this weekend. They are still perfect at home. Only them and the Buffalo Bandits are undefeated on their home floors after Philadelphia loses last weekend. So I'm going to say Vancouver stays undefeated at home and pulls this off against a former rival. I guess they're still rivals, but less of a rivalry now that they are not in the same conference.
And one interesting thing somebody pointed out to me is that a lot of teams, if you look at the way the games go, teams that win have a tendency to lose the next week, and teams that lose have a tendency to win the next week. It's just because I think there's so much parity, except for Buffalo, right? I mean, they tend to win, and then they tend to win, and then they tend to win.
So at 24 years old, if he was a player, he could be a rookie like Alex Simmons and a lot of these guys. But yet for goalies, we seem to it is weird. Do you think it's just because of the college and so many guys play juniors and they don't start to go to college till they're 21? Or why do you think that is with the players versus the goalies?
No, it's 100% because of college, because a lot of the goalies don't go. I mean, but Brett Dobson was 24, 25 as a rookie, right? All the guys who go to college as goalies are, and now it's been even exacerbated, right, for the guys like Simmons and all those guys who had the COVID years. So, I mean, Adam Charlambides is the extreme example of 2 redshirt years and a COVID year. So he was like 27 or whatever when he came out. But, he spent 7 years at Rutgers. But it's absolutely because of that. And goalies, there aren't as many goalies that go down because, for one thing, the position doesn't translate as smoothly, right? I mean, you can be a great box goalie, you may not have a clue how to play field goalie. I mean, your stick's in a completely different position. You're not wearing any gear. You're standing in front of this huge net, which, I mean, goalies are crazy, but field goalies are super crazy. Yeah. Right.
So I guess what you're also saying is that Dylan Ward and Brett Dobson are 2 of the craziest guys in lacrosse.
100%. Yeah. Caleb Creaser is a defender.
And so, Stamper, when it comes to
in box lacrosse, and he's a goalie in field. He's actually one of Canada's 3 goalies that they had on the roster for the Worlds. And Matt Vince is a goalie in box, and he's a runner in field. The other way, he's a defender. I don't know the point of that, but I always find it interesting.
That is because you got Blaze Reardon. I've heard of it going the other way. I've never heard of anybody playing goalie though and playing out. That is an interest. I mean, although nothing.
Stamper, I think
still surprises me.
Did he freeze?
He did, but he's back now. We're good to go. So just like that, we'll get you on to the Philly-Halifax game. I'm very curious as to how you guys pick this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Samper, I know you had said that I picked start with the last two picks. So for me, I'm going to go with Philadelphia for this one. They've had a solid home crowd, and I know that Teddy Jenner was on Daily Dive with Michael Carvelis yesterday, and he was saying that guys like Tom Schreiber, maybe Challen Rogers would be his MVP. I know I've spoken about it where I think that Mitch Jones or Joe Resetarits should be MVP. And I think that one of those guys is going to have an elite performance against Halifax. You did mention Warren Hill, obviously, who had a great performance in his game last week. But I think that Philadelphia pulls this one out.
This to me is a really tough pick. I think both teams won last week. So by that theory I mentioned earlier, they should both lose this week. So obviously that's not happening. I think I feel like a lot of things went wrong for Philadelphia last week, and a lot of things went right for Halifax. So I think they're both good teams, but I got to go with Philly with things turning around for them this week and them getting some more of the breaks and Halifax getting fewer of the breaks.
And Halifax really needs to get the ball rolling, momentum really starting to go. If they lose after a really solid and important win for them, especially on their home floor, I think that that can continue to keep the ball rolling. But if they lose, that's just another step back, and more questions arise with them this season. So a lot weighing for both of these teams as Philly starts to have their issues. And then obviously in this last game, San Diego has not been at their best. 2 games under 500 for the first time since their inaugural season. I just can't imagine that they lose again and go 3 games under 500. They're just too good for that. So just on that sake alone, I'm going to go San Diego.
Okay. I think that logic is pretty sound, but early in the season, the Toronto Rock had a couple of bad games and they kept playing well and they just kept winning. And I kept saying at the beginning, they can't just lose another game. I'm not picking Toronto to go 0-3. I'm not picking Toronto to go 0-4, 0-5. And then they turned it around, and I think teams can lose some games. As much as I was saying, you don't tend to win or lose a lot of games in a row. I just feel like Toronto is on such a roll here. Nick Rose is playing better. I think a lot of guys are playing well. I'm going to go with the Rock to keep it rolling right now because I think they really recognize how important these games are for them to climb back into the playoff race.
And so do you feel, this is a little bit of a diversion, but do you feel that if San Diego loses and they can't get wins, I actually think I had tweeted out their next 3 games, they've got 2 against Toronto, I believe, or maybe it's 1 against Toronto and then 2 against Buffalo. Yeah. If they lose all of those games and we're nearing the trade deadline, do you see them as sellers, especially with a lot of veteran guys on that team that could be helpful other places?
I mean, wow, that's a great question. Trade deadline is a week earlier this year. It's after week 10. It's March 10th, or sorry, after week 15 on March 10th instead of after week 16 like it was last year. So a little earlier, teams are going to have to make their decisions. I don't know, because I think even if they could lose these 3 games and all of a sudden they're 3-8, and that really looks dicey for getting in the playoffs because you need to win 9 games to be sure of that. I actually talk about that I'm going to be talking about that in my musings this week. I've got the notes, but as far as becoming sellers, I don't know. I mean, does Ryan Benesh want to move again? I don't think so. I think he probably wants to stay there. Who are you going to trade? Any of the guys who just came in? You're not getting rid of Zach Courier. Mm-hmm. Ben McIntosh, Rob Hellier. Maybe Hellier goes somewhere. I don't know. Who would you trade?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, Hellier was one of those options for me. Is it a shortstop? And I haven't spoken to him, but was this a short-term stop for Ben McIntosh? Does he go someplace to a contender or someone that needs some help? So interesting there, but also they do have a lot of younger pieces that I know you don't want to trade away all of your young pieces, but is there a package that can be built for a San Diego team that not only has not performed up to expectations in the postseason, but obviously the strategy that they had come into this season with hasn't paid off.
There's also the very real chance. I mean, we've talked, they could be 3-8 in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They also could, it's hard to imagine a team sweeping Buffalo right now, but San Diego's good. If they play well, things go their way, they could go 2-1 in this next 3 weeks. All of a sudden they're 5-6 and they've just beaten 2 of the hottest teams in the league. And you're thinking they're fine.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it could happen. And look, as much as we're, mentioning these guys' names on that team, there is that capability on that roster. So it'll be interesting to see, but that is a diversion from our picks, a little split there. But
I will say, if I'm another team and I'm looking at them, depending what you need, but I would probably be looking at Kyle Rubish and saying, can we get Rubish out of there and get him? Because I think he's still playing really well.
Totally.
So
yeah.
That's it for picks.
I think that is it for picks.
That's it for the show, right?
Oh boy. Well, yeah, it seemed to really go by. But yeah, another great one.
It flew by. Awesome. We are over an hour now, though, on it. But yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll let you guys close it out. But yeah, the pictures got flip-flopped on there, so I'm not popping myself up because I noticed I had to switch you guys a couple times. I'm not sure why that keeps happening. But yeah, thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you guys so much for taking the time. I love it. Really compliments the IL Indoor articles and the future draft picks. Hopefully that'll help me down the road here when we start talking about these guys. So, everybody's not unknown, and when all of a sudden they come out having, an O'Neill rookie season, I'm not completely like, wow, where'd this guy come from? I know he's an American, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's funny. Before we did the game on Friday, Jason Tasse was doing color for the first time for an NLL game. He'd done some games in Prague with me, but just little games with the Rebeski or E-Box and things. And I said, one thing to be prepared for, this is going to fly by. They go so fast when you're in the thick of the game. There's no breaks going off things. It's go, go, go. And this show felt like that as well. I he did a really good job, especially as he got going. Greg, you keep talking about, I switched the things. I did this and that. Honestly, we're just talking. We barely pay attention to what you're doing over there. We just trust you to do your side of things and make everything work. So appreciate you letting us know, but we wouldn't have known. And Adam Levy, always great to catch up. I'm glad you're feeling better. You've obviously bounced back from the way you were a couple of weeks ago when you were really having a tough time. I hope the health keeps going for you. And Preston, I hope Nikki stays healthy because I know is holding your household together.
She definitely is. She is a true warrior. Yeah, my sinuses not been very happy with me lately. Yeah. So good to feel much better.
Nice. We can hear you breathing. That's great because sinuses just wipe you out, right?
Oh,
when they're not working. That is it for ITWOBL for a week leading into week 11 of the National Lacrosse League season here on Blue Squatch Productions. For Greg Beecher, for Adam Levy, I'm Steven Stamp. Check everything out at IL Indoor. There's some really good stuff coming up. Can we tease? There's going to be a junior story coming up. There's some great stuff coming along. That's a drum roll. Oh, cool. We noticed that, Greg. We didn't miss that one. That was really fun. And with that, we will close ITWOBL for this week. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.